The spirits of these 5 ponies got us through every challenge you threw at us. Twilight Sparkle glared at Nightmare Moon, her 5 friends at her back, the shards of the broken elements hovering around them, radiating with awoken power. Honesty, laughter, generosity, loyalty, and kindness had gotten them this far, and now, all but the final element lay in their grasp. "But you still don't have the 6th element," scoffed Nightmare Moon, with only a twinge of worry in her face. "The spark didn't work." "But it did," continued Twilight. "A different kind of spark." She turned towards her friends and continued. "I felt at the very moment I realized how happy I was to hear you, see you, and how much I cared about you. The spark ignited inside me when I realized that you were all my friends." Nightmare Moon stood visibly shaken, and as Twilight turned away from her friends, her eyes sharpened from humility to confidence. They knew now that the elements of harmony were in their grasp. And sure enough, another stone appeared in a flash above Twilight's head. But as it lowered towards her, it became increasingly clear that something was wrong. The light that accompanied it began to rapidly dim, and the stone began to fade as it appeared. Twilight's eyes became filled with fear as she realized that something was horribly wrong. The 6th element faded long before it reached Twilight, and the ponies turned their confused and terrified glazes upon Nightmare Moon, now looming triumphantly above them. As the shadows billowed around her, 1,000 thoughts raced through Twilight's mind. What happened? What could have gone wrong? Why had she come so close, and then had the 6th element taken away? 1,000 questions, but no time for answers, as the enchanted smoke crushed down on her like a silent tidal wave. Twilight was awoken by a crash, when it was all too normal occurrence in her library. She lifted her head in puzzlement. Not because there was a crash at all, but because it had come from the door leading to her balcony. Seeing the sun pouring in through the door, she realized at the same time both that she had slept in and that the door was no longer on its hinges. "Blah! What's up? Who?" cried Spike, shaking off his covers. His sleepy eyes frantically scanned the wreckage until he saw a blue flank lying beneath the remnants of the door. Rainbow Dash gingerly extracted herself from the debris, casting a sheepish look over the pony and dragon in their beds, both of the expressions that conveyed a lack of surprise, stern condemnation, and expectation of inexplanation. In a world where body language required you to stand on 3 hooves, facial expressions became very required. "Sorry about that, guys," Dash managed with a nervous smile. "I was practicing a new trick, and, well, you know how it goes." Twilight sighed and rolled her eyes. She certainly did know how it went by this point. "It's not like I don't appreciate you stopping by, Rainbow Dash, but this is the 2nd time this month you've broken my door like that. 4th, if you count the times you missed the door and come through the wall instead." "I'm really sorry, Twilight," Dash said, fluffing her wings out to test for injuries. "It's just that when Applejack and I built that catapult, we didn't actually think about where we would land, and now it's too big to move." She puffed up herself with confidence. "Once I master this trick, I won't crash anymore, and you don't have to worry." Another glare from Twilight prompted her further. "And I'll go get that door fixed for you. Again." Twilight finally got herself out of bed and walked downstairs to begin cleaning the mess Dash had made. She was still surprisingly tired considering that she had slept in, and Dash must have taken her exhausted features as annoyance. "Hey, is there anything I can do to make this up for you? Besides cleaning up the door, of course. I feel bad this kind of thing keeps happening." Twilight automatically started to dismiss her with a hoof, since the last thing she wanted was someone even more accident-prone than Spike hanging around her study area. Before she could even get a word out, however, she remembered that she did need help for something. "Actually, Rainbow Dash, I'm working on a bit of a new trick myself. You see, I've been trying to teach myself how to teleport ponies besides myself between my studies on friendship, and since the Grand Galloping Gala ended, I've had a lot of free time on my hooves. I think I almost got it figured out. but I need another pony to test it on. Dash's smile immediately jumped from embarrassment to nervous. Oh, I'd love to help, but, wouldn't it just be easier to use Spike? Ever since the mustache incident, he's always eager to be your test subject. An instinct noise from his bed upstairs conveyed Spike's reaction to being thrown under the bus by Dash, but both ponies ignored it. I normally would, but the point is to teleport ponies, specifically Pegasi and Earth ponies. Dragons are naturally magical creatures, so they are much more receptive to unicorn magic, much like cockatrices and certain types of owls. Pegasi and Earth ponies are more resilient against outside magic, or maybe a better term is less inclined towards it, since they don't have any inherent magical... Okay, Twilight, I'll help you out. I just don't always mix well with magic is all, even when the best intentions. Dash walked over to the closet and nudged the door open, rooting around until she found herself a broom and dustbin. Great! I'll start getting everything prepared. Oh, this is so exciting. My first spell that I've made. Well, I guess it's still technically a subsection of teleportation. But if this works, imagine the doors that'll be opened. Mass transport of goods, instant travel between cities for every pony. And Celestia will be so proud of me. And then, to consider the implications of ensuing mass magical radiance, Dash rolled her eyes and began cleaning the mess, letting Twilight continue on. Knowing he wasn't getting back to sleep with all the noise, Spike climbed down to help her, making the task go much faster. Dash still had time to think about what she was getting herself into, though, and she didn't like it at all. Normally, she didn't have a problem with magic. It was just when she was being tested on that she started to draw the line. Still, look at the last time Twilight had experimented on some pony. Rarity and the Wonderbolts had almost died. Still, her being a little uneasy with no reason to turn down a friend's request for help, especially after she'd rudely awakened Twilight this morning. By the time Rainbow Dash had reconciled herself to playing guinea pig for the day, Twilight was already flipping through her books, 2 at a time, getting everything prepared, talking all the while about her egghead nonsense. Okay, we'll start off small, of course, just from this side of the room to the other. Spike, could you give me some yellow chalk from the other room? Rainbow Dash, could you please stand right over there? No, I said stand, not fly. Okay, I'm almost ready. Spike, where's that? Oh, thanks. And I just need to trace out the fluctuation patterns on the floor and account for Rainbow Dash's mass, and that should do it. Now Dash, go back to that spot. Okay, ready? Wait, Spike, I need you to get Owlicious out of there. Rogue magical factors aren't accounted for in this equation. Okay, now, Dash, stop hovering. You look nervous. It's a simple spell. It's just never been tried before, is all. Well, not successfully anyway. Whoa, what do you mean? But I've accounted for everything, so we shouldn't have a problem. Even if we do get teleported somewhere random, like off the ground, you can fly us both to safety. Look, I don't know. And I've been working on this for so long, and I'm so excited to finally get to try it. Oh, think of how much easier every pony's life will be once this spell is tested. This could be the biggest contribution to pony society since apple farms. Twilight gave a dreamy sigh as her daydreams unfolded before her. Dash sighed in defeat. If it meant that much for a friend, Dash would certainly buck up for one simple spell. Yeah, she thought as she picked her head up and regained her composure. What kind of loyal friend would I be if I can't even help Twilight with one favor? After a few moments, Twilight snapped out of her wishful thinking and bounded next to Rainbow Dash. Side by side, they focused their gazes on the circles scrawled on the floor on the other end of the room. Both licked their lips in anticipation. Slowly, Twilight's horn began to glow, dimly at first and then brightly as she concentrated. Dash could see her straining her neck as she mentally willed them forward, and as her horn flared like a beacon, the world began to slip away. Dash had seen Twilight teleport plenty of times, and it always seemed very sudden. This, on the other hoof, seemed to be taking a long time. Twilight's horn shined so brightly that most of Dash's vision was obscured, but she could see the floor beneath her stretching and compacting beneath her. Fighting the urge to leap into the air, she concentrated on Twilight's face until she began to feel herself move forward ever so slightly. It was slightly nauseating, but also interesting. Twilight began straining even harder, and Dash began to feel something pull her backwards. No, not backwards, more like sideways? Inways. Not in a direction exactly, but she was also moving forward. And another glance at the ground confirmed that the distance between their starting place and target area was significantly smaller. In fact, it looked like she could step from one to the other, but before her eyes, they closed further, and they overlapped and became simply the target area. They were at their destination, but Twilight still grimaced in deep concentration, and her horn flared repeatedly with magical energy. The sense of moving forward ceased, but the other tug remained, increasing in tension, until with a snap, Twilight opened her eyes and let her horn fade. Did we? Twilight muttered, barely coherent from the ordeal. She could feel her legs quivering beneath her, and let herself collapse to the ground as she let out a cough. I'd love to tell you, but I can't see anything. Twilight opened her eyes again, and to her surprise, she couldn't tell the difference between opened and closed. There was no light at all, not even enough to see her hoof half an inch from her face. Ow! Yelped Rainbow Dash as she tried to put that to the test, followed by a stumble and rustle of pages as Dash fell over a pile of books. Books! That meant they were in the library. The spell might have worked after all. Twilight concentrated enough to make her horn emit a dim glow, the limit of her abilities following the taxing teleportation spell. As her horn illuminated their surroundings, she and Dash both drew in horrified gasps. They were still in the library, and had even appeared in their teleportation target. But instead of the shelves of books lining every wall, and the leafy bruise of the tree poking in through the places, they stood in the center of a charred trunk with no ceiling. Fire-scarred pages littered the ground, with larger piles of soot and paper marking where piles of books had been burned. Twilight let out another cough as she kicked up ash entering her lungs, and she could see and hear Dash hacking away behind her. She turned around in horror again and again, until Dash finally composed herself to ask, Twilight, where the hay are we? I think we're in the library, Twilight replied absently, still trying to catch up herself. We can't be. We were just there and it was fine. Teleportation is instant, right? Maybe this is a different library. It's all dark outside and everything, so we must be somewhere else. Twilight could hear the edge of panic in Dash's voice increasing with every sentence. Oh, why had she dragged her friend into this? For that matter, how did this happen? She was sure she checked and rechecked everything, though there were always unpredictable factors when dealing with untried magic. Twilight dimly became aware of her friend speaking again, and snapped out of her thoughts to listen. To the others, the ponies that had tried the spell before. You said it was never completed successfully, right? Oh, I don't really know. What do you mean, you didn't research it? They weren't found in trees a mile away or anything? No, I mean, no pony knows. They, were never found at all. Twilight looked guiltily at Rainbow Dash, who had only a look of shocking betrayal on her face. Twilight hadn't exactly tricked Rainbow Dash, but under her hurt look, she felt like she had. But Rainbow Dash would have never agreed to come along if she knew the whole story, and there shouldn't have been any danger anyway. She didn't even know that there was any danger yet, only that they were in a library that had been burned down a long time ago, that it looked very similar to her own house, and that there was no light, not even the moon or the stars, just an empty black void a few feet away into infinity. As Dash's eyes narrowed, and she drew in a breath to reply, a hissing noise sprang up from behind the burnt husk of a wall. Softly at first, then louder, as a familiar pink shape came tiptoeing around the corner. With an exaggerated sneaking on 2 hind legs, Pinkie Pie crept up to the 2 ponies, glancing left and right as she did so. "Shh!" she finished at last, glaring at both Twilight and Dash. "You aren't supposed to be talking. I told you to go away. Mr. Slide will even kick you out. So what are you doing back here?" Twilight and Dash looked at each other dumbfounded, then to Pinkie, then back to each other. Pinkie?" Dash ventured. "Do you think you could explain some things to us? I've got a list of questions here. Like, where the hay are we? And what the hay are you doing here? And what the hay is going on?" Dash's yells faded into the blackness surrounding the 3 ponies, eagerly eaten up by the heavy shadows. Twilight frowned at this and redoubled her horn's glow, noticing that she had left her concentration slip in the confusion. The circle of light expanded about a foot, but Twilight's fatigue kept her from getting much more illumination out of it. Pinkie Pie stood frozen for a few moments, her face an unreadable frown. Dash's stomach dropped as she began to recognize the slight eye twitch and peculiar frown that Pinkie wore when Dash had tried to fetch her for that surprise party a few weeks ago. Pinkie had crazy written all over her, the particular Pinkie kind of crazy that made rocks talk and friends into enemies. Her hair was straightened, and her eyes didn't look in quite the same direction. Almost alarmingly, she looked as if she hadn't bathed or groomed her fur in weeks, and her snout was covered in soot. But Dash had seen Pinkie looking fine just the other day before. Pinkie slowly began looking around, stepping carefully over the clumps of charred wood. After a moment, she stopped and looked into the empty patch of wall, replying, "Okie dokie. But no more questions after that. But not here. I'm just here for the pages. Help me gather them up and come with me. And no more talking. Ghosties shouldn't talk."